wanted to do a quick little video on my diagnosis of whether I have bore scoring or not. I don't think I do. That's the quick and dirty of it. I don't know if it's common or uncommon, but I didn't do a PPI before I purchased this car. I basically did a bunch of other things that made me feel confident that I did not have to do a PPI. Plus, I didn't really have much of an option. The dealership that I bought it from said that I can inspect it there, but they would not allow me to drive it to an independent to get it PPI'd. Additionally, or actually they did, but I had to put a $5,000 refundable deposit in order to drive it off the lot and do a PPI. The other option was to have that third-party shop come to the dealership and do the PPI, but that was super costly because I have to pay for basically the whole day for a technician to come out or a mechanic to come out. So I went with, basically by taking a risk and by buying this car and paying as much as I did for it. And then basically doing what I needed to do during the PPI. I'm doing that afterwards to just kind of see if I have an issue or not, or whether I have to, or whether I got a bad deal. I've always said I think I paid about 10 grand more than I should have. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but the fact that it doesn't necessarily have bore scoring makes me feel a little bit better. So the things I did, an earlier video I showed how to scope the bore through the spark plug hole, and then there's other symptoms that I'll go into as I discuss this. But I've been searching online, not so much on Rensless, but on YouTube, and there's two main video series that I think go into bore scoring quite a bit. And this is mostly for the 996 first gen 997 vehicles with the M96 engine or whatever they call it. But I think it applies for the engine that I have, which is the A1 or 9A1 or something like that. So it's the 997.2. I believe they are still susceptible to bore scoring, and so I'm trying to prevent that as best as I can. So the first thing, so those videos are super long and kind of annoying if you ask me to just go through everything. They tend to just talk quite a bit more than they have to, but they're good videos. They have everything that you need, I think, but like I said, it is a lot of like extra talk. So I'll try to go into the summary, and that's kind of like the main purpose of this video, a little bit as to what I've done, and then what someone might want to do to prevent this type of thing. The first thing they talk about is when you start off the car, not to just sit there and warm it up by idling it, to actually start driving. And that's why I haven't started this vehicle up yet. I wanted to show basically what I go through, and then there's a couple other things. So the first thing is, this is a cold start. I haven't driven this car in quite a bit. And they say pretty much just get going, so that's what I'm going to do. They say basically the cold engine is what's causing bore scoring, and you want to warm up that engine as quickly as possible. And the quickest way of doing that is by driving the vehicle. Now, they say when you drive the vehicle, when you start driving it, until it gets to temperature, you're not supposed to over rev it. And so they recommend just short shifting it at 3K, and that's what I'm doing. But I've noticed with this car, it takes a very long time for it to warm up. There's two temperature gauges. There's one for the water, and then there's one for the oil. The water gets up to temp pretty quickly, but the oil takes a very long time. to get up. And I suppose if I didn't have an oil gauge, you'd really have to just base it on time or the amount of miles that you went. So I'm basically short shifting it at 3K. So that's the main thing is during startup, start driving the car, then short shift it until you're fully warmed up. I want to say that's like 160 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit on the engine oil. And then the other thing they talk about is changing the oil often and using an oil with moly in it. Now I've gotten my oil from FCP Euro or something like that. It's the location where or the vendor that does lifetime replacement on all wear parts, including oil. So I'm gonna try to double check to see if that oil has, and I believe it has moly, but it's like a high moly content. That's basically what they say. A couple of the folks recommend this driven 40 or something like that. It has a high whatever moly content, and so I might switch over to that, but I kind of want to take advantage of the lifetime replacement guarantee on that vendor. So they say they recommend, okay, often oil changes based on either time or mileage, and yeah, it doesn't matter whether you've driven the car that much during the 6-month period, let's say, that you want to swap these out or the oil out. You want to change it based on the time or the mileage. So if you happen to drive, I think like some people say 5,000, but I'm going to try to probably change it earlier than that. But I doubt that I'll drive that much during the 6-month period. So I think for me, it'll be every 6 months that I'll change it out. Okay, so often oil changes. The other thing is using a top tier premium gasoline. I guess fuel is a big issue. How the quality of fuel, in addition to whether your fuel injectors are working correctly. So those two things are related with fuel. And so you want to use a top tier gasoline. I guess the top tier gasolines also have high-end detergents that will help clean your valves. That's another issue. So there's all these contributing factors to bore scoring, and fueling, and the improper fueling is a contributing factor. So I typically get my gas at Costco, and I double check with Top Tier. There's an actual website called Top Tier to see if they are considered top tier, and they are, but nonetheless, I think I'll go with the more name brand like Chevron or Shell, Shell, and go with their high-end octane gasoline going forward. The other thing is you might want to do a fuel additive, and I have one. I bought one, and I think I'll just keep that in the car just in case I'm out somewhere and I don't have access to one of those name brand gasoline stations, and then I'll pour that fuel additive during that fill up, just to be on the safe side. So the other thing they talk about doing is doing an oil analysis, and that's what I did in my last oil change. I saved some of the oil and I sent it to Speed Diagnostics. That seems to be one of the better ones, or the one that's main on the internet. And I sent my oil to them and got the analysis back. And the main, there's 3 things that you want to look out for: aluminum, silicon. Oh man, I don't remember the last one now. Aluminum, silicon, iron. So if you find that you're high on those particles inside your oil, you want to keep track of that, and that could be an indication that your bores are being scored. I won't go into the details as to why that's the case, because again, you can watch the videos, but just understand that those are the 3 things that you want to look out for. Now, on my results, there was one material that was flagged, and I'm going to keep an eye on that during my second oil change, and that has something to do with crank and something where the diagnostic provides what it could be or things to look out for. So I'm going to say that since I don't know where that oil or how old that oil was or whatever, so I'm going to see whether that shows up again during my second analysis. And what's cool about that company is they provide historical data, so they have your record and they'll provide, whatever the previous oil sample and up to X amount. It's $70 a pop. You pay online. They send you a bottle with a prepaid postage box back, and you just fill up your oil. And there's a couple steps to it. You have to make sure that's clean around the drain plug, and you want to wait X amount of seconds, and get it like midstream, that kind of thing. So as long as you follow those directions, I think you'll be fine. So they recommend that as a kind of like keep an eye on it, or whether that's an indication that you might have bore scoring. So I'm glad mine was more or less green on those 3 materials. The other thing, there's some visual and auditory type of checks that you can do. The visual ones are obviously the bore scoping from the spark plug, and then there's also another way of doing it from the sump, which seems to be a little bit more I'm not going to say complicated, because it's actually just as complicated to go through the spark plug. So I would have done that had the scope through the spark plugs been a little bit more concerning. But right now, I'm not going to do it, I don't think, unless my oil analysis shows something different. I don't want to be so invasive unless I have to. So that's you have 2 options on scoping visually: is through the spark plug and underneath the oil pan sump. Then you want to do some auditory type of checks, and they talk about the clicking noise. Now they have samples online of the ticking, and to my ear, I can't tell a difference between what's normal and what's not. So I don't think that's going to work out that well for me, just because I can't hear a difference. But there is a way of hearing for that ticking noise that's an indication of the bore scoring. And then they always talk about the sooty tailpipe on the driver's side, and whether that's more sooty, I guess, from the other side. But that's another just indication. It doesn't mean that you have it, but it's something that you want to keep an eye out for. And so that's pretty much it that you want to do. I think the main thing is not letting it warm up during idles and start driving it. Short shifting it until you're fully warm. Using top tier gas. What else is there? Changing your oil often. Keeping a tab on the oil analysis, and then if you happen to see those visual audio cues, to really focus on those. Oh, I forgot one thing. They talk about oil usage. So you want to keep track of how much your engine uses oil. And there's a whole series of steps for that. Basically, I think what I'm going to do in my case is check the oil often, the level at least, and then find out if it is, using up oil, to keep track of it. And then it's more or less the difference in oil consumption. So basically, I'm going to start tracking it, seeing how many miles or how many, fractions of a quart the engine consumes per mile, and then just note that. Thanks. So for me, having been able, lastly, I'm going to probably order the Durametric diagnosis tool. And I guess Durametric, and I recently found this out, is a specific OBD2 reader for the actual Porsches. And so I'm going to get that, because I guess that what that does is that allows you to, keep a track on things. Like I said earlier, the fuel is a big issue, and it will help you understand whether your engine is running lean or rich. And that's an indication that maybe you have fuel injector problems or something else. So I think I'm at about, was this 175 on my temp, my old temp, and I feel like now I can kind of take it up higher. So I think with those things, an investment of I don't know, $300 or so, you're basically ensuring whether you're going to be able to catch whether you have Porsche scoring or not. Hopefully by doing those things you can be prevent the possibility of having Porsche scoring. I kind of feel like every cylinder will score a certain way. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think everyone will have it. It's just a matter of how bad. Alright, that's pretty much it that I got.